Hey there, it's Lacy J here to ask you to go to spacebearmedia.com right now to access all our content, buy yourself some merch, and most importantly, send us a message, the latter of which we'll reply to on our newly revamped weekly pre-shows, where we have as many fun segments as we do on the audio pod. There are current events with Christy, corrections and observations with Ben, and as always, questions with Derek. Plus, I have new fun facts and tell a terrible fucking joke every single week. Please join us, and please consider rating and reviewing us on your favorite app or recommending us to a friend who loves Lost. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's Lost in My 40s, Season 3, Episode 13. It's called The Man from Tallahassee. It's a Locke episode. It's a me episode. It's the one we've all been waiting for. But first, how's everybody doing?
I think it's the one you've been waiting for. The rest of this feels a little bit like projection, but I'm doing fine.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure everybody wanted to know why he was in the wheelchair. This is it. That's what I meant. For fuck's sake. Ben, remind us what our power rankings look like after the first 12 episodes, please.
We've got Sawyer in first place with 71 points, Juliet in second with 61, with Hurley, the mayor of Islandtown, in 50. In third place with 50.
Got
Dead
it.
Pants Danny, negative 90 points, Poop Stick Paolo with negative 66, and Charles Whitmore with negative 29.
Poop stick.
I love it.
All right. I wonder if our rankings are going to be the same at the end of this episode. All righty. Shall we?
We shall.
Yep.
Flashback number 1. Stack of paperwork can be seen being reviewed by a government worker of some sort. It appears to be an application for disability insurance. The worker begins to question John Locke, who is seated on the other side of the desk, asking his name, marital status, whether he has a girlfriend, if his parents are living. Locke says he was raised in foster care and never knew his parents, and the woman asks him if he's ever thought of finding his parents. Oof.
We have our fifth Deadwood sighting here. This actress who plays the disability person.
It was driving me nuts. I couldn't think of it the other day. She plays the caretaker of the guy.
She plays Aunt Lou.
Jesus.
Aunt Lou.
Aunt Lou, yeah. Thank you.
Oh, man. She was also in, Pineapple Express. She's been in a bunch of stuff. She was the female cop in Pineapple Express.
Oh, okay. She does a lot of commercial work as well. We've seen her in some popular commercials. But yeah, it was that Deadwood
she ends up
thing.
doing a lot of comedy mostly that I've seen her in.
Right. Okay. Right. So Locke is bothered by her asking if he wants to find his parents. And he doesn't think it's relevant. And then he's told that if the government is going to continue paying his disability insurance, they have to investigate whether or not the condition has improved. So at this point, you're like, wait, improved? Because obviously they want you to think they're talking about him being in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Right. So after answering the questions about his appetite, it's fine. Locke tells the woman that the reason he stopped submitting his therapy bills was that going to therapy was a waste of time. She then stamps his paperwork with a benefits suspended stamp and tells him that it's only temporary. He can reapply when he goes back to therapy. And Locke says, "You think I'm temporarily disabled?" And then she drops the bomb. "Depression can be temporary, yes. And since you see fit to stop going to therapy, I guess you're all better." So Locke stands up, what? And says, "I guess I am." Coming at you with the fake out early on. So back on the island, it's still day 80. And we pick up at basically at the moment last week ended with the A-team spying on Jack and the others from the bushes. Tom and Jack are tossing the football. Danielle sees this and without a word just pieces out into the jungle. Bye. She's like, fuck this shit. So Juliet calls to Jack. He throws the football to her. She catches it, throws it to Tom. It's all very adorable.
Oh.
Kate whispers to Saeed that Juliet is the one who helped she and Sawyer escape. So Juliet walks over to Jack and puts her hand on his arm. Kate's face is like, excuse
Kate's
me.
face is like, what?
Did you notice that? She's like, excuse me, bitch. So their conversation is like barely audible, but it sounds like she says something about it's going to be tomorrow. So Saeed is looking around for Danielle. Kate tells him that she's gone. Locke maneuvers around a little bit in an attempt to see Jack and Juliet better as they walk toward a house. Takes the binoculars out of his pack to get a closer look, and he sees Juliet go inside the house to wheel out Ben in a wheelchair. Jack and Ben converse, but again, it's barely audible. They shake hands. Locke puts down the binoculars, and as all three of them stare in shock, he says, "This is going to be more complicated than we thought."
Yep.
And that is the last title screen. So Kate, Locke, and Saeed have retreated into the jungle a little bit. Kate is loading ammo into her rifle. She's ready to kill that bitch. She's like,
Yep.
Why would it not have already been loaded before they came upon
I know.
Yeah, exactly.
the barracks?
Yeah,
It's like
that
the
too.
number of times you have to have somebody either put ammo into a gun or cycle the action to make him think like, okay, now I'm really, really ready. Where they should have
Right.
just taken
Now I'm
it off of
serious.
safety instead of
Right.
Yeah.
So she's ready to just start shooting everyone, I think, to rescue Jack. Saeed points out it looks like Jack may not want to be rescued, and she thinks they've drugged him. And Saeed's like, thinks that he looks lucid. She's looking for any reason why this isn't real, basically. So she says they kidnapped him, held him prisoner. He wouldn't just forget that. Saeed replies, I agree, but until we know why, we're putting our lives at risk. She tries to walk away, saying she's not leaving him, but Saeed tells her, like, she may not have a choice. Locke chimes in and says, it's Jack. The first time I saw him, he was risking his life pulling people out of a burning airplane wreckage. If he's shaking hands with the others, I'm sure he has a good reason. We just have to go down there and find out what it is. So Locke thinks they should wait until dark and then approach Jack alone. And then if he wants to leave, they'll help him leave. And then he cocks his gun.
Of course.
Of course.
Yes.
That's the way this
Serious
stuff works.
time. Locked and loaded, baby. All right.
Locked and loaded.
Flashback number 2. Locke is in his apartment watching an episode of Expose, actually. If you hear that what's on the TV, he's eating a TV dinner and he's like shoveling nondescript meat and potatoes and corn into his face. And the characters on the TV are discussing the Bolivian gold deposits being stolen by the Cobra. Someone on the show gets shot. Stay tuned for next week. And Locke answers the door and points to a sign that says no solicitors. And he tells the man there's no solicitation. So the man there, roughly in his late 20s.
He says, I have a sign.
Yeah. Okay, mister. You got your sign. So this guy, he says he's not selling anything and introduces himself as Peter Talbot. He tells Locke that he's afraid that his mother is in trouble, and Locke's like, you got the wrong guy. And he tries to close the door when Peter says, how many kidneys do you have?
What?
What? Locke stops dead in his track and stares at Peter. The men are both now in Locke's kitchen as he puts spoonfuls of instant coffee into 2 cups.
His whole existence is so pathetic.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The way they show like this apartment, it's just so gross, and yeah, they really,
He's
really
sitting
TV dinner. And then
He's sitting
Yeah.
alone, eating the TV dinner, watching TV, and you know what it reminds me of in True Detective season 1 when Woody. What did I say?
Yeah, I was agreeing with you. I said True
Oh,
Detective.
yeah. I thought I said something wrong. Yeah, in True Detective, when Woody Harrelson is in the scene, like after his wife has left him and he's sitting there eating the TV dinner, it's like the same exact picture.
Yep. It's the
pathetic man.
quintessential like man who's been man alone or something.
Yeah.
Middle-aged man in
Bachelor.
the world.
Yeah.
None of them can
there
ever
you go.
fucking cook.
Nope. It's all TV
Yeah,
dinners.
I don't eat TV dinners for dinner. So,
Yeah. Oh,
It's
yeah,
more of
yeah,
a
you're
breakfast thing
bachelor.
for me. I mean,
It's lunch for me. I eat them for lunch.
All right. So, anywho's, back to the instant coffee. Peter's telling Locke about how his mother met a retired computer entrepreneur from Ontario named Adam Seward. His mother has gone gaga for this man and is ready to marry him after 2 months. Peter has become suspicious, so he decided to check the man out. Locke says he's not sure what that has to do with him, so Peter hands him a photo of his mother with motherfucking Anthony Cooper. We all saw that coming, of course. But
Yep.
and then he says, again, no fucking medical privacy, apparently. He goes, all I could find on him was his medical records, which listed
Really?
John
not
as
how
his
that
kidney
works.
donor. What? What do you mean all you could find on him? Like, that's the hardest information to come about, but that's all you can. Okay, whatever. So Peter says he's checking in with Locke because, like, if someone gave a guy his kidney, how bad could he be, right?
Yeah.
Oof. So
Fucker.
Locke pauses for a moment and says the donation was anonymous and he never met him. Peter questions this, but Locke lies again and says he can't help him.
Locke doesn't look like the type of guy to just randomly give up a kidney,
Right.
Yeah.
anonymously.
Yeah. I don't know what that does look like, though.
Like a kidney
No.
donor. Yeah.
I don't either.
What does
but
a random kidney donor look like?
yeah,
Why do you think he
It's
lied to him?
It's certainly not him. I don't know what that
Yeah.
looks like, but you're right. It's certainly not Locke.
Definitely not anonymous because it's public record.
Why do you
At
think? Why do you think he lied to him? Why do you think he didn't just say, "Oh God, that's my father. He stole my kidney. Tell your mother to run." Like, why? Why not?
He
just
doesn't
say
want
it right
to
then?
be. He doesn't want anything. He does not want to touch this.
Right.
He's
Except
hiding.
that he goes looking for his father right away, so that he does. Like, he could have just ended it, you know what I mean? But he had to pursue his father. It was like he had to see him. He had to be a part of it instead of just, I don't know. Right? Because he could have just
You
told
heard
him
my
the
theory.
truth, and then that would have been the end of it. Because he could have told his mom, and I don't know.
It's like an addict. It's like somebody's like, no, I don't want, and then the second they have the taste of it, they're there. They flipped.
he's actually giving Mr. Cooper the opportunity to walk away and not be a bad guy.
Yeah, well,
Which
that was
won't
his
happen.
mistake, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so it's nighttime at the barracks. Locke is spying through his binoculars, and he passes them to Kate as they watch Juliet walk Jack to his new house to say goodnight. Locke tells Saeed to guard the front while he covers the back. He thinks Kate should go in alone because it's best for Jack to see her first. They all move toward the house, and Kate enters. She finds Jack playing the piano. She approaches from behind with kind of like a mesmerized look on her face and lowers her gun. He turns to see her and asks why she's there, and she tells him she came to get him, and he softly but forcefully tells her to get out. She tries to argue.
Before this happens, though, like when he sees her, they have this I don't know, few seconds where she's just looking at him and she just says hi. And I think that's actually my favorite performance of Evangeline Lilly in this entire show is that moment.
Yeah.
It's like really, really, really well done. And it's like you could see all of the emotions on her face in that moment, just in her looking at him and saying hi. Like that was a pretty poignant moment, I thought.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. She was just so very genuine in the way that she spoke to him.
Yeah.
Right. So she tries to argue with him about leaving, and he stands up and yells, "Kate, they're watching me." Like, duh, of course they are. Anyways, so she sees the camera on the wall, but says she's not leaving without him, and he's yelling at her to go when a door slams open and two others enter with guns. They yell at Kate to get down and then restrain her. Two more others come into the room and kick Saeed to the floor next to Kate. Jack stands to the side with his arms up. The men ask who else is with them. Kate looks at Jack pleadingly, and he coldly tells her to answer the question.
What?
Yeah, Kate looks a little taken aback, and one of the men cocks their gun. So Kate kind of glances at Saeed and then says, nobody else. It was just us. And she's like breathing heavily and looking up at Jack in desperation, and he just stares back at her.
Well, and Jack's not an idiot. He's got to know that Locke is around somewhere.
Well, of course.
You think he knows for sure? Or you think he's suspecting that?
I think so. I mean, when does Locke not go on one of the side quests?
Yeah, he's always on the
Yeah.
side quests.
Yeah, that's true. Well, he didn't go on the frog one.
No, but that was the
That was a
special one.
dumb
That was just
side.
too-
I mean,
yeah,
that wasn't
that
even a
was
side
special.
quest. That was just stupid.
All right. So the scene switches to Ben lying on his side in a hospital bed that's like in his bedroom. And he hears a noise and looks around. What are you laughing at?
His hospital bed, his bedroom.
Is that funny?
Weird. Yeah, I guess.
I think that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
All right. So he's looking around. He kind of calls out to Alex. And when he flips the light on, he finds Locke standing in the corner of his bedroom, pointing the gun at him. Surprised, Ben says, John. And Locke tells him to keep his voice down. So Ben is like, look, it's all right. You can put the gun down. I'm willing to tell you where Jack is. And this is when Locke drops the bomb.
Of course.
He smiles, one of his Locke smiles, and says, I'm not looking for Jack. I'm looking for the submarine.
Of course.
Oh, fuck. Did you know immediately? Everybody knows he wants to blow that fucking thing up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the C4.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Locke asks about the submarine. Ben tries to play stupid, asking, like, what submarine? Locke says Mikhail told him about the submarine right before he killed him. Oops. From outside the room, Alex asks her dad who he's talking to, and a frightened Ben tells her not to come in there. Locke goes to the door, opens it, finding Alex. At the same moment, there's a knock at the front door, so Locke grabs her and forces her into the room. Alex is trying to talk to Ben while Locke covers her mouth and tells Ben to tell her to be quiet. Tom can be heard calling to Ben, asking if he's awake. Locke drags a struggling Alex into the closet. Tom and another...
Seven in heaven with Locke.
Ew.
Oh,
I'm gonna go make out. I'm gonna go make out with your daughter, dude.
oh, God. Can we please stop making out with teenagers? Okay.
I had sex with her actually.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So, Tom and another other enter to tell Ben that Austin and Gerard somehow found them and are now being held at Tom's place. Ben says to separate them and find out how they found the barracks. He asks he asks about Juliet and Shepard, saying that tomorrow in the morning, Ben immediately cuts him off and says, let me worry about that. Tom leaves and a shadowy figure remains, one with a familiar voice. Locke can only see his back, but Ben tells the figure to bring me the man from Tallahassee.
Who?
Locke kind of, who? Locke kind of narrows his eyes when he hears this, and the man replies in, like I said, a familiar to us voice, not familiar to Locke. Wanting to know what Ben needs the man from Tallahassee for, and Ben tells him to just do it. And the shadowy voice leaves. Locke and Alex come out of the closet. Locke says, the man from Tallahassee, what is that, some kind of code? And Ben retorts, no, John. Unfortunately, we don't have a code for there's a man in my closet with a gun to my daughter's head. Although, obviously, we should. So Locke tells Ben that Saeed had a pack with him when captured, and he wants Alex to go and get it. Ben tells Locke that Alex currently hates her, so holding him hostage to get her to do things might not work. She's like, Dad, and then says that she'll do it and walks
You're
out the door to
embarrassing
go
me in
get
front of my new boyfriend.
Yeah.
Oh
He's been
my
out in the
God.
closet.
Flashback number 3. Locke enters a flower shop where good old Mr. Cooper is with Mrs. Talbot, and they're looking at flowers for the wedding. She's saying that she wants something really stunning that will grab everyone's attention. She and Cooper are discussing a particular bouquet when he notices Locke in the shop. He leaves.
Lock in the shop.
Lock in the shop.
You know, I watched this episode twice, and each time for some reason I thought I didn't even think about them buying flowers. I thought this was a flower shop that she was working at. And I'm not sure why, because apparently she's like super, super rich, but
They're
yeah,
planning a
weirdo.
wedding.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So Mr. Cooper leaves Mrs. Talbot and approaches Locke, who says, going to be a big to-do or just the two of you and a preacher? I guess you couldn't invite me, huh? That would make for awkward introductions. Cooper is mystified that Locke knew what he was up to. And Locke gives the game away, tells him Peter came around asking why he donated a kidney, hoping he'd vouch for him. Mr. Cooper, of course, wonders if Locke did so, and Locke asks him directly if Mrs. Talbot is being conned. Cooper wants to know what John wants, and Locke asks him to call off the wedding. Mr. Cooper's annoyed and asks, why are you doing this? And a desperate Locke replies, because it's not fair. You make people think you're their family, and then you leave their life in ruins, and I'm not going to let you do it again. You're going to call off your engagement and go, or I'm going to tell her the truth. I want to hear you say it. You say you're going to leave. And Cooper replies kind of casually, okay, John, you got it. And then he turns and walks out of the shop, apparently leaving his fiance standing in there looking at flowers.
It's like, this is chick shit. You figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm going to go have a beer and a cigar.
That's right.
Without a
Watch some
word.
sports.
I'm a little confused about the timeline, though.
Okay.
Because this is clearly after Helen. But after Helen was when Anthony Cooper fled the country or something.
Apparently.
So now he's back.
It must have blown through all of his money he got in the whatever scheme. He probably didn't have as much because he gave some of it to John.
I don't remember him fleeing the country. I see, right, because they were in the hotel and he was taking money. Yeah, and then he came back. Well, he must have run out of money. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, but now he's taking the chance that those, greasy guys are going to find him.
Yeah, they didn't seem terribly capable. He's probably we have forgotten about them for the most part as watchers. So they're like, let's just bring him back. Then they didn't expect that Christy was going to figure that one out.
Well, so yeah,
that is a reasonably sized plot hole.
We'll revisit this once we're finished with the whole series. We will have a special episode that talks about Lost chronologically. So we'll dive more into that. Cool.
Wow.
Yeah. And figure that out later. Right. So I can't stop laughing about the fact that he just up and walked out on his fiance in the flower shop. It's fucking hilarious. Alrighty. So Locke is sitting in Ben's bedroom watching him. Ben wants help out of the bed into his chair, and he says, no tricks, I promise. I just want some dignity. You, of all people, should understand what it means to want some dignity. Locke stares at him for a moment and then gets up to help. And Ben wonders how Locke intends to pilot the submarine. So Locke brings over the wheelchair and says that for all Ben knows, he was a commander in the Navy. Ben stares at Locke and Locke smiles, of course, admitting that he was not a commander in the Navy. And as Locke is putting Ben in the chair, Ben asks, what is so important in the pack? And he then says, just rattles it off, figures it all fucking out in 5 seconds. And Ben's Locke met Mikhail, which means he was at the Flame, which is full of explosives. And he just flat out says it, you want to blow up the submarine. And he says, I know you, John Locke. And he's got the sort of Ben mischievous grin on his face. And Locke says, you don't know me at all. And so then Ben drops the hammer. I know you were born in California. I know you were raised in foster care. I know you wasted a big part of your life in Tustin pushing papers at a company that manufactured industrial boxes. I know you spent the 4 years prior to your arrival on this island in a wheelchair, and I know how you ended up in it. Tell me, John, did it hurt? The side of Locke's mouth twitches a few times as he looks down at Ben and says, I felt my back break. What do you think? So we switch over to... yeah.
This sounds painful. Yeah. That's smarts.
So Kate's over in what looks like a game room of sorts, kind of like a rec room in a overnight sleepaway camp is what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
But so she's sitting on the... What'd you say, Derek?
So they got electricity and all that. Yeah,
that's nice. Mm-hmm. So she's sitting on the pool table, pulls her handcuffed arms under her legs so they're in front of her, just as Tom walks in and stands in the doorway. He tells her that he didn't expect to see her so soon and then motions to someone outside the door. He tells the person to be careful in here and then makes a motion like somebody is listening to what they're saying.
But they still talk in normal tone, so.
I know.
Mostly.
Yeah, mostly.
So in walks Jack and thanks Tom, who leaves and shuts the door. Jack grabs a chair and sits on it backward in like kind of a defensive position. And they ask each other if each other is hurt. And then Kate wants to know what the barracks are. So Jack tells her that this is where they live and that all the survivors they took are safe there. And she's like, so you're with them now? And he says he's not with anyone. Whoa.
Yeah.
So she hops off the table and demands to know what they did to him. He says nothing, so she demands to know why he's acting like this. Jack stumbles over some words, and Kate gets angry, shouting that she came to help him. So Jack screams, I told you not to come back here for me.
He did.
Yep.
True.
Sounding wounded, she replies, I didn't think you meant it.
Fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Ouch. So they stare at each other for a little bit. Jack looks down and kind of glances back at her. She walks toward him and kneels down to his level, puts her forehead against his head. While they're in this position, he confesses he made a deal with them and they're letting him go home tomorrow. He says he can bring back help. She questions why he would trust these people, and Jack says he trusts them because Kate told him to in order to save Sawyer's life. Holy fuck.
Yeah, he's got a point.
Yep.
Throwing that in her face, yeah. So the door opens. Juliet comes in and tells Jack they need to go. Jack tells Kate that he wishes she wouldn't have come back. He stands up, leans close to her ear, and then whispers, but I will come back for you, before walking out the door. Holy fuck.
Yep.
Flashback number 4. Locke pulls up in his red Volkswagen Beetle and gets out of the car. While carrying groceries across the lot, a man and a woman standing by a car interrupt him. They introduce themselves as Detectives Mason and Reed and ask Locke if he knows a man named Peter Talbot. Locke is taken aback and pauses for a moment, but says, no, I don't think so. They describe Peter and then tell Locke they believe he was at his apartment 2 days ago. Locke remembers and says he was a solicitor who he sent away. The detectives tell Locke that Peter's family is worth about $200 million. And so he's curious about what he was selling door to door. Locke again says he doesn't know Peter. So the detectives ask why his address was on a piece of paper in Peter's pocket. Wow, that was
that 5 times fast.
Yeah.
a piece of paper in Peter's pocket. So Locke is like, wait a second, why are you going through the man's pockets? And they respond, because Peter Talbot's dead.
What?
Ooh,
Good
fuck.
job. Good job, John.
Yeah.
Fuck.
You
Fucking
gave that
moron.
one away.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. He could have just told the guy the truth when he was drinking his instant coffee, and he could have saved his life. It's ridiculous.
Eating
So
his nondescript meat.
So back at Ben's house, Locke is like nervously looking out the window, and Ben says, it wasn't easy, you know, being in that hatch with you all that time, knowing you had no business walking around, knowing I couldn't even ask you about it without telling you who I really was. Locke tells him to ask him now, and Ben like excitedly wheels himself over to Locke, and he wants to know if the healing was immediate. Locke tells him yes, and Ben says, and you were just walking? The feeling returned right after the crash that day? And Locke replies, that's what immediate means. Okay, Locke. So Locke then kind of, puts 2 and 2 together and figures out that Ben is actually wondering why he hasn't immediately healed. And then he says, now that I think about it, how'd you get sick in the first place? Ben ignores him and says, are you afraid it will go away, John? Is that
Boom,
why
right
you want to
back
just
at him.
Yep.
Instead of admitting any sort of doubt, they just go right on the counterattack. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. So his counterattack is, are you afraid it will go away, John? Is that why you want to destroy the submarine? Locke ignores him and says, you got anything to eat? I fucking love it. So Saeed is handcuffed to a swing set. An other is watching from a nearby fence. Alex walks over and says her father sent her to get Saeed's pack. He questions her, but she gives an exasperated response like, I don't know. My dad told me to. So he sends her over, and Saeed, the look on Saeed's face when he sees her, he's like, holy fuck.
He's
and
like,
he says,
there's no doubt about this DNA right here.
Yeah.
So he says, so you're Alex, aren't you? And she asks how he knows her name. And he tells her she looks like her mother.
Whoa.
Woo! Alex kind of frowns and says her mother is dead. And Saeed replies, I'm sure that's what they told you. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. So Alex pauses for a moment to consider what she just heard, and the other punches Saeed in the face and tells him to shut his mouth.
Is this like Dead Pants Danny Part 2?
Yeah.
They got a guy that's sort of like him. He's just sort of a middling looking white guy who just looks kind of unlikable.
It's Danny's nephew, Todd.
Odd. Yeah.
All right, so Locke pushes Ben into his living room, and Ben turns on a light, prompting Locke to wonder where they got electricity. And Ben tells him that they have 2 giant hamsters running on a wheel in a secret underground lair.
On this island, it wouldn't surprise me.
Probably 2 polar bears.
Yeah.
Did you say 2 polar bears pushing something?
Yeah.
That's really interesting, Ben. So Locke thinks that that's funny. And Ben tells him to get some leftovers out of the fridge. As Locke gets himself some food, Ben stares at the framed photos of a young Alex on the wall. Locke devours a plate of food and says he's never appreciated chicken until now. And Ben turns to look at him and says that if he blows up the submarine, Ben is going to have a huge problem with his people. So Locke wonders if that's supposed to be an incentive not to do it. And Ben rolls toward Locke and says, I was born on this island. Not many of my people can say that. Most of them were recruited and brought here. And as much as they love this place, as much as they would do anything to defend it, they need to know they can leave if they want to. The sub maintains that illusion. Locke points out that that's lying, and Ben gets exasperated. And he says all of his people want to be there. It's just that some haven't quite made the commitment yet. And then he adds...
That's so cult-like.
Oh, yeah, a little bit. And then he adds, but John, you've already made the commitment. And this gets Locke's attention.
Yeah, you see his face like,
Oh. So Ben continues, and now you have a choice. Because if you stop, and if you think, I can show you things I know you want to see very badly. Let me put it so you'll understand. Picture a box. You know something about boxes, don't you, John? What if I told you that somewhere on this island there's a very large box, and whatever you imagined, whatever you wanted to be in it, when you open that box, there it would be. What would you say about that, John?
Locke isn't curious.
Yeah.
Locke isn't fazed at all, grins, inadvertently admits his explosive intentions by telling Ben he hopes the box is big enough to imagine himself another submarine. Fuck, I love it. Do you guys think the banter between Locke and Ben, I think, is even better than the banter between Locke and Jack in the early
Yes.
Oh,
seasons?
Yeah, I like this.
Right?
This banter was really good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
They're again, it's like 2 stags going at it, but when they do it, there's a subtlety to it, especially with Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben's always kind of subtle. That's what makes him great.
Yeah, I always feel like Locke is always kind of throwing haymakers. Like he throws jabs, but he throws a lot of big haymakers or whatever. And everything Ben does is he's like watching a really, really good boxer who's like
He's
a
like playing
counterpuncher.
jazz.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's just like he never comes at you directly. He always comes at you sideways, and that's
he's manipulative as fuck.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so after Locke's little zinger, Ben wants to know why John is so angry, and Locke snaps, saying that Ben is cheating.
This
Communicating.
is so dumb.
Well, I mean, but he's like obsessed with like the idea of the island, right? So this is his point of view.
I also feel like that they are right here. They're trying to make this like a mirror image of his conversation earlier with Mr. Cooper. You know, basically, it's not fair. You're cheating.
Yeah.
You know, they're
Right.
doing that same thing, but it feels. I think Christy, you may have been kind of going here with it. It feels a bit forced in this situation, I feel like.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So he says it's cheating, communicating with the outside world, coming and going as they please, electricity, running water, guns. Ben is a hypocrite, a Pharisee, he calls him. Locke tells him that he doesn't deserve to be on this island. He says, if you had any idea what this place really was, you wouldn't be putting chicken in your refrigerator. Ben points out that Locke has been there for 80 days compared to Ben's entire life. He challenges him, asking why Locke thinks he knows this island better than Ben does. Locke stares him down and says, because you're in the wheelchair and I'm not.
Bam! Boom!
Gotcha, bitch. And then they just kind of stare at each other. And Ben, you can see it on his face. He's like, oh, you motherfucker.
Yep.
So Alex returns home and she's got the pack. Locke says that now he needs her to take him to the submarine and then he'll let her go. Ben wants to take Locke to the sub, but Locke says he'll be too slow. So Ben...
You're not chair, buddy.
So Ben tells Locke that he made a deal with Jack, who's going home on that submarine. They've lost communications. They have no more contact with the outside world. Once Jack leaves, that sub is never coming back. So the result is the same, even if he doesn't blow it up. No one will find this island.
Locke doesn't give a shit.
No. So Locke and Alex peace out. And outside, Alex says to him, you know he's manipulating you, right? It's just
That's
so
Locke.
matter of
He's
fact.
easy to manipulate.
Right. So she tells him that her father always makes what he wants you to do your idea. Locke says he'll keep that in mind. Yeah, sure. At the end of the path, the submarine can be seen docked at the end of a pier. Locke puts his hand on Alex's shoulder, and he's actually pretty genuine here. He apologizes for having to involve her in this. She watches.
Yeah, she's a great kisser.
Oh my God. Okay, so she watches as he hurries over to the submarine, pauses for a minute, and then she heads back to the barracks. Meanwhile, Danielle has been watching Alex from a nearby tree. Did anybody else notice the snot running out of her nose?
Yes, I just wrote another creepy Danielle stare.
No, I
Her and Locke would get along.
I don't think it was creepy. I think it was grief.
Boogers. Yeah.
It was
With
boogers,
boogers,
I think maybe the fact that there was saliva, like boogers running on her face, it made it kind of ooky to me. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean it's gross, but she was, crying basically.
Yeah,
That happens
that's her
sometimes
daughter.
when you cry.
It does.
No, yeah, it does.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so cut from snotty Danielle to Locke walking to the end of the pier. He looks around before reaching the submarine, opens it, and looks inside. And it is very reminiscent of when he opened the hatch and looked inside. He climbs down, walks around inside the submarine, turns on a light, and walks around a corner.
Yeah, he knew where the light switch was, like right away. Just reached up, snap, there the lights are on. So maybe he was a Navy commander.
And back in Ben's house, he opens the fridge, returns the plate of chicken. Jack walks into the room to ask for a favor. Juliet is standing beside him, and Ben turns around and says, you don't knock? Oops. So Jack requests that his friends be set free after he's gone, and Ben wants to know if he said no, would it stop Jack from leaving? So, of course, Jack nods and says, of course it would. Ben says since they're here to rescue Jack, who doesn't need it, they can go. And Ben gives his word, and they shake hands. Ben looks at Juliet and says, well, I guess this is it. She seems pretty genuine, thanks him for keeping his promise. Ben nods and smiles. Jack and Juliet leave, with Jack pausing for a moment at the door to glance back at Ben. Now we have Locke walking back from the pier.
Well, and I wrote, because I've forgotten what happens at the end of this episode while I'm watching it. So I wrote, Ben clearly doesn't want Jack and Juliet to leave. So yeah, he manipulated Locke into blowing up the submarine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we have Mr. Locke walking back from the pier, soaking wet. Jack and Juliet and a couple of others come walking down toward the pier, and they see him, so the others pull their guns. They tell him to get down on the ground.
They didn't cock him, at least.
They loaded them all and then cocked them. And
So Locke holds his hands up, lowers himself to his knees. Jack asks Locke what he's doing there, and Locke responds, "I'm sorry, Jack."
Ugh.
Jack has only enough time to say, "Sorry for what?" before the submarine fucking explodes.
Locke loves blowing the shit up.
he does.
Yeah.
Checkmate.
Yeah.
As smoke billows from the ruined escape, Jack and Locke stare each other down.
Fucking Locke.
Did anyone else notice that Locke gives the tiniest little shrug here?
Did he really?
Yeah.
Like,
So,
you could have said sorry. Oh, he did
Sorry.
say sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jack.
Push it through a sonic fan.
just
Blow
gives
through
the
submarine.
tiniest little shrug here, like, meh, you know.
I mean, I feel like it was the same thing when he pushed Mikhail into the fence.
Yeah,
it was
that's
just,
exactly it.
sorry.
Sorry. Sorry, dude. Yeah.
Oopsie.
oopsie poopsie.
Okay, so we are now in flashback number 5. And if flashbacks were named like Friends episodes, this one would be called The One Where We Find Out Why Locke Was in a Wheelchair.
Finally.
So someone is banging on the door of Anthony Cooper's apartment. He opens it to find an accusatory Locke. "What did you do?" he says, pointing his finger and pushing his way into the apartment. Cooper acts like he doesn't know what he's talking about. "Tell me that you didn't kill that kid," Locke says, and he points out that he just told him the kid was meddling and now he's dead. Cooper tries to calm him down by saying he's been doing this for a long time. He's not sweating some rich kid.
Bullshit.
So Locke wants to know why Cooper is still in town. He gives him some bullshit story about how he couldn't find a way to end it before Peter died. As he's telling this story, you notice he's pouring 2 glasses of McCutcheon whiskey. So he says that when Peter died, she called off the wedding, and now there's no profit in it. No reason to be conning anymore. Locke's wise to him, and so he's like, okay, cool. So if I was to call Mrs. Talbot right now, this is what she would say, and Cooper shows him where the phone is. Mr. Cooper takes a slow sip of his whiskey while Locke moves in front of a window to pick up the phone. He asks for the phone number, and instead of giving it, Cooper lunges, tackling Locke, sending him through the window, falling 8 stories to the ground. What do you think,
That
Like
Derek?
a
answers
longer
that.
fall than 8 stories, but yeah. Now we finally find out.
What do you think,
So-
Derek? Does it live up?
Yes, it does.
It does,
Fucking
okay.
shit, Dad. Yep.
Yeah, that's an understatement, I think, but
Yeah.
yes. So Locke is now lying in a hospital bed, bandaged and badly
Lucky he
bruised.
lived though. 8 stories. Usually you die.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Do you think you could even survive that? I
People
feel like
have
the head
fallen
trauma.
miles before.
Yeah, people
and
Yeah,
have-
there's
Yeah.
stewardesses in planes that were blown up that fell 33,000 feet, but they landed on a mountain that was snowy and hit the right
Right.
angle. But
yeah.
Well, and there have been skydivers whose
Yeah.
chutes haven't opened who have survived the fall.
yeah.
That
That's gotta
sounds
suck.
terrible.
That's
yeah.
gotta be terrifying.
yep,
Yeah.
well, it's not the fall that kills you; it's a sudden stop.
Indeed.
Yep.
The detectives from earlier are in his room and they tell him that his father is gone. He fled to Mexico and then disappeared from there. A physical therapist enters the room and says that Locke has work to do now. The detectives say they'll notify him of any developments and they leave. And the therapist tries to get Locke to learn how to use his wheelchair, but he is being stubborn. He says he can't. And the therapist replies, "John, you fell 8 stories and survived, okay? I don't want to hear about what you can't do." He lifts
Which is-
Locke.
I was like,
You know.
gravity did most of the work. I didn't really
Yeah.
have much to do with it, to be honest.
But it's such a good moment because he's like, I don't want to hear about what you can't do.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
when
exactly.
Locke starts saying, don't tell me what
Don't
I
tell
can't do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
Oh. So he lifts Locke, kind of picks him up like a baby, carries him to the chair and places him down. The guy calls him Buddy a few times, pats him on the back and says he'll be right back. And Locke is left there looking down at his immobile legs, and he starts to cry.
Oh, sad buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be crying.
Yeah.
I'd be probably suicidal at that point. Like, just the trauma of what just happened after the trauma of what happened before, and all of the, I mean, oh my gosh.
Well, if you're going to do it, I'd attempt not jumping off a building. You already tried that. It didn't work. So if you're going to try suicide at that point, maybe pills is the way to go.
But you can see, I mean, you can feel why Locke is like wanting to blow up the submarine, right? I mean, why he wants to stay on that island. Like, he's the closest thing to a hero on the island, and everything else about his life before that was such shit.
But
I don't blame him.
doesn't mean that he should stop others from leaving.
That's my point, too.
I mean, I agree with that, except for in his mind, if they leave, then somebody's going to come back and discover them and rescue them, and he'll be forced to go back.
He doesn't have to go. I mean, they got houses there. And
I mean, honestly, like, if a rescue group was to show up at the island, like, you could just be like, nah.
I'm good.
I'm cool.
Well, they wouldn't even need to know you were there. If you know there was a rescue group coming, you just move inland. 5 kilometers, maybe, like, fuck it. Like, he knows the island better than anybody. He would be able to
hide in one of the hatches.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And if anyone comes near, oh, hey, you're going to take me back, you just fucking kill him. He's obviously got scribbles about that.
No,
just push him through fences.
No, I'm good here. I'm good. I have nothing to go back to.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm good here.
Right. Like, I'm happy here, and that's great.
But I think what they're probably really, really hinting at here is this is not a rational thing for him. This is a completely emotional thing that's driving him. His fear is so elemental. Yeah.
All 3 seasons is his emotions.
Yeah.
On the island, you mean, Ben? Like, his fear of going back to this.
His fear of anything, not necessarily going back, but his fear of anything that is not what is happening right now, where he is powerful. Like, he's scared shitless of all of that.
Gotcha.
And that's why I think he makes these decisions that are binding for other people. Because he's not really thinking about them. He's projecting that this island's good for me, therefore it should be good for all of us. That's why Boone is a sacrifice the island demanded, because it's better for me.
But then I go back to him talking to his father about how it's not fair. Well, it's not fucking fair for Locke to be making these decisions for other people.
Yeah, true.
Oh,
exactly.
agreed.
Yeah.
Because he knew that Jack was going to be leaving on that. So
Yeah. But, Ben manipulated him, just like Alex said.
Yeah.
Back on the island, Locke is handcuffed to an overhead pipe in a dark room. Ben and Richard Alpert, the mysterious voice from earlier, come into the room. And Ben says, well, John, you've really gone and done it now. Locke tells him to cut the crap because he knows blowing it up was what Ben wanted him to do. Ben tells Alpert to uncuff Locke, who asks if Locke is going to do anything stupid. No, sir, he replies. Ben then tells Locke that earlier he was stuck. He had made a deal with Jack that would make him look weak in front of his people, and killing Jack would expose his reneging on a deal. But then John came along to make his dream come true. Locke says, you're not going to start talking about the magic box again, are you? I'll show you my magic box, Locke.
Ew.
Sorry. So then Ben says no, but that he is going to show him what came out of it. Whoop, whoop. So Ben wheels out of the room and Alpert drags Locke alongside him. Ben tells Locke he misunderstood him earlier when he asked if it hurt. He wasn't talking about the physical pain of breaking his back. He was talking about the emotional pain of having his own father try to kill him.
Which is fucked up.
You mean that? Oh, no, that I'm fine then. That didn't hurt at all.
Yeah, he just took my kidney and threw me out a window. No problem.
No problem.
Talk about daddy issues.
Seriously.
Oh my gosh. So all 3 men stop moving at that sentence, and Ben looks at Locke and asks if his father is the reason he destroyed the submarine, because the island is the only place where Mr. Cooper can't find him. What do you want from me? Locke asks, and Ben replies, I don't know how it happened, but you seem to have some communion with this island, John, And that makes you very, very important. You have no idea what you're talking about, of course, but in time, you'll have a better understanding of things. So what do I want? I want to help you, John. Locke asks him why, and Ben replies, because I'm in a wheelchair and you're not.
Yep.
And then he very creepily says, are you ready to see?
Zip.
So Albert slowly opens the door. Locke cautiously looks inside the room. Sitting there, tied to a chair, gagged, covered with cuts and bruises, is motherfucking Anthony Cooper.
What the fuck?
He looks terrified. Locke stares in shock and says, Dad?
Holy
Lost
shit.
title screen, end of episode.
This was such a great way to end.
Blown
when that
away.
scene happened, I even yelled out, holy fucking shit. I was like, what the hell is going on?
What? Of all the things to come out of a magic box, this is it? Oh,
Dad?
Fuck.
Last thing I
right.
think came out of a magic box was
yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
What? I think that was... When was Jesus in a box?
You know what?
It was a cave.
Okay.
A virgin birth. I'd call that a magic box.
Oh. Okay,
Christ.
good one. Good one.
Yep.
Points to Ben.
Who's ready? Ben, you got points, babe.
Oh, yay. He
Points.
who has the most points wins.
Wins what?
Indeed.
Doesn't matter.
Who's ready for fun facts about submarines?
Are we going to
I
be covering
am.
submarines and submersibles or just submarines?
I don't know the difference. You can correct me as I go along.
Just go ahead.
So the first working submarine was actually a leather-covered rowboat made by inventor Cornelius Drebbel in 1620, which I found pretty amazing. Submarines have the ability to navigate underwater using sonar, like some of our marine brethren, meaning mammals. With all the force from water pressure, heavy and strong metals like titanium have to be used to make sure that submarines don't become crushed under the pressure. In 1776, U.S. inventor David Bushnell built a submarine that was used in the American Revolution, the first war.
Didn't know
Yeah.
that one.
No.
I thought the Civil War was the first one.
Nope. So first war used a submarine was the American Revolution, which I found
honestly
also pretty interesting.
Thought that it would have been in the 1900s.
Well,
No.
1700s.
next fact, by the 1900s, inventors had come up with submarines that could run on a battery-powered electric motor and diesel engines. The electric motor was for when it was underwater, and the diesel engine was used for surface traveling.
That's how U-boats traveled.
Right. So my next sentence was these were the type of submarines that were used in both World War I and World War II.
Mm-hmm.
In 1954, the United States Navy used the first nuclear-powered submarine. It was called the USS Nautilus, and the majority of them are nukes now. There are some that are not, but only because they haven't been retired yet. A submarine is driven by 4 people. There are pilots that control the rudder and the diving, and others to steer right and left. The submarine submerges and surfaces by filling and emptying tanks called ballasts. When they fill with water, and the submarine will sink, and they're filled with air, or they release the water, replacing it with air, and the submarine will rise. Naval submarines can dive to depths over 800 feet, although they won't exactly say how far over 800 feet because they are military vessels, so that is a secret. The nuclear-powered ones can remain underwater for 25 years.
Holy shit.
Although typically food supply is stocked at 90 days. And so submarines will regularly rise after 3 months. Research submarines have been known to get to depths of 32,000 feet.
Wow. The Mariana Trench.
Yes, exactly. In the Mariana Trench. And that is facts about submarines. Did you want to tell us?
The pressure down there's got to be insane.
It's I don't know how it didn't get crushed, really.
We know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the deepest areas of ocean in our planet.
Yeah, isn't that kind of cool?
Makes me think of The Abyss.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I love that movie, but only the director's cut.
Oh, I haven't seen a director's cut. I'll have to watch that.
The director's cut makes so much more fucking sense.
It
doesn't make any sense at all. The one that they released made no sense, but the director's cut explains everything.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, it really does kind of get into like the motivations of the
aliens.
The alien creatures or whatever.
Yeah.
I agree. Like most James Cameron movies, the director's cut is always better.
Yeah. Ben.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a submarine and a submersible?
I don't really know.
Well, then why the fuck are you bringing it up?
I think the submersibles. Way do I remember it being explained was that a submarine is actually something where the power supply, the engine or whatever it's designed specifically to operate underwater, whereas a submersible can go underwater for a time, but then it has to recharge its batteries by coming to the surface, and it uses a diesel engine.
The difference between a submarine and a submarine is a submarine has enough power to leave port and come back to port under its own power. A submersible has very limited power reserves, so it needs a mothership that it can launch and recover it.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
pretty much what Ben said.
Okay.
Yeah, but that would mean U-boats were actually submarines. I heard it in the past that they were submersibles, but they went out from their own bases and came back. Though they did often they'd have supply ships and tender ships that would be out there in the ocean.
Smaller.
Yeah. Okay, so a submersible operates from a mothership, basically.
Like the thing that went to the Mariana Trench was, attached to a mothership. It had a hose, I remember, because I watched the special. It's really crazy what's down there. There's actually life down there.
Yeah.
Like really weird
all of those
fishes.
All of those research submarines or whatever are actually submersibles because they're generally, they'll have like a big boat that gets them out there and then they drop them in and they go do their investigations.
Right.
It's cool.
Alrighty then.
Yep.
How about some best and worst moments? Christy, start us off.
There were so many great moments. I really had a hard time choosing, but I think seeing Anthony Cooper at the end was probably my favorite because it's just such a mind fuck.
Yeah.
Right?
Worst moment is Anthony Cooper throwing Locke out of a window. That was kind of fucked up. I don't think that you should do that to your family.
Other people's family, fuck them.
Yeah, other people's family, I'll throw them out the window.
I just can't imagine, how Locke must have felt. It's just awful.
I can think of a family member or two I'd push out a window. All right. For me, I had a best moment and I had a sort of an honorable mention. The honorable mention was the scene between Alex and Saeed because it's just like, holy fuck, like she's so close to finding out that her mom is on the island. And then the real best moment is just, Dad?
Yeah.
Holy fuck. Worst moment, Locke's own father tried to kill him. Yeah, obviously, that's fucking horrific. Derek, what'd you think?
Best moment, of course, was the ending, Dad. Mm-hmm. And I also liked, my honorable mention was the exchange in the kitchen between Locke and Ben.
Yeah.
The whole, culminating with because you're in a wheelchair and I'm not.
The dueling wheelchairs conversations.
Yes. And then worst moment was when Anthony Cooper threw his son out the window. Fucked up.
Benjamin, what about you?
Obviously, the reveal for Mr. Cooper was one of my favorite moments. But my other favorite moment I mentioned earlier was where Kate was watching him play piano and he turns around and she just stares at him and says hi. I thought that was just a fucking amazing scene.
She would have me at hi, too.
And my least favorite, even though I loved it as well, was getting tackled out the window and 8-story drop. That was pretty rough.
See, I agree with all of your other best moments. besides, of course, the ending. But in addition, I would also say the exchange between Kate and Jack in the rec center.
Yeah.
Where he was like, I will come back for you.
Yeah.
A lot of good, moments.
Dialogue.
Yeah, and dialogue. Yeah.
Yep.
Ben, what's your rankings look like this week?
I only had a top 2. It was just, Ben in first place and Locke in second. Between those two, I'd probably put Kate or somebody in third, but I felt like 1 and 2 were so strong that I didn't really feel like anyone even came close to a third place. Mm-hmm. Bottom 3, I only have 1, and that's Mr. Cooper. I'm going to fuck Kate, and I'm going to kill Mr. Cooper.
I also had Ben Linus. It's number 1. He's just always a step ahead. Is the guy? It's
several
he's
steps
magic.
ahead. It seems like, yeah.
Yeah, right. I did have Locke in second. Again, he was the bold, determined Locke, who I love. He did allow himself to be sort of manipulated. They both wanted the same outcome, so it's debatable how manipulated
he was going to blow
was.
it up regardless.
Yeah. But that's why I put him second to Ben. And then I put Dr. Richard Alpert in third because, again, he's intriguing the fuck out of me. Who is this guy? I want more. He leaves me with that feeling every time he appears. So I put him there. Worst characters, I just had Anthony Cooper because I was trying to skew it to make it worse for him. I also killed him for the same reason. That banter between Locke and Ben was hot. It got me turned on. I fucking love it. So I'm going to have a threesome with the two of them while we fall 8 stories.
Oh, wow.
Not in a wheelchair?
Not in a wheelchair.
No. As we fall.
That's going to be quick.
Yeah.
Less than a second. About a second, maybe.
All right. Well, maybe we'll keep going.
It's probably been a while for Locke. That's probably all it would take.
Yeah.
Christy, what were yours?
So my top was Jack. I just loved that he was still trying to protect, his people. Mm-hmm. I think this might be the first time that I've got Ben in my top 3.
Whoa, we broke her, guys.
I know you guys might have broken me, but he's just so brilliant in this episode.
Yeah.
I agree
Absolutely.
with all of you when you're like, yeah, he's a step ahead. For third, I put Alex, because she knows Ben so well, and she's like, my dad's manipulating you. You're being a moron.
Yeah. And also the awesome thing about that is the second the idea is even introduced to her that her mother might be alive, she must be like, oh my God, has he been lying to me my whole life? Because it's so easy to believe that he would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right?
Bottom 3, of course, Mr. Cooper is the worst. And I had Locke in second place because I just think it's so fucked up that he blew up that submarine and he took
you're
away
really
Jack
stuck on that.
and Juliet's chances to get off the island.
Yep.
He's selfish. He's very, very selfish.
Very true. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not fucking anybody, but I'm going to go ahead and kill Mr. Cooper.
All right, Derek.
My best was Ben Linus, because same reasons that y'all like him, because he's 3 steps ahead of everyone. He'd be a better chess player than Locke.
Oh, yeah.
Second is Jack, because he's willing to come back to get Kate and the other survivors. And then I chose Alex as number 3 for same reasons as Christy,
Okay.
building up to her mother. And also, I can't give her points for fucking her, so I might as well give her points
Oh
for
my
being good.
God.
This is not real. You could if you wanted to. I've already done it.
And then worst, of course, was Anthony Cooper, and my second worst was Locke, because I know the reasons why he blew up the submarine, but it was a very selfish act.
Thank you.
Screwed Jack over.
I'm not alone in this.
Now, see, if Ben wouldn't have told him that Jack was going to leave on it, okay, that's fine. But
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to fuck
see.
Kate, and I'm going to kill Anthony Cooper. Throw him out a window, but higher than 8 stories. 'Cause
Yeah,
obviously
all right.
8 stories doesn't kill you.
Make sure he's really dead.
Throw him off the Sears Tower or something.
All right. So, Ben, update us. I think maybe we've had some movement this week.
We've had a move. They moved the top 3, stays exactly the same. We've got Sawyer at 71, Juliet at 61, Hurley at 50. But in 4th place, we now have a tie between Ben, Linus, and Desmond.
Hell yeah.
Each with 49 points. They're only 1 point behind Hurley.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a horse race for number 3.
Hey,
for the
wow.
bronze. Wow.
Hey,
all right.
wow.
What about in the bottom? Did Mr. Cooper
we've got,
upset Deadpants Danny?
No, he did not. No, I don't think anyone's going to catch Danny.
right.
Danny's at negative 90 points still. Poopstick Paolo still at negative 66, but Anthony Cooper did jump in front of Charles Widmore with negative 32 points.
All righty.
I think he'll have more opportunities to get negative points because he's on the island now.
This is true.
Yes, this is not the last we've seen of Anthony Cooper this season. All right, so shall we do some final impressions? Ben, why don't you keep it going? What'd you think?
I think this was a great episode. I feel like this almost felt like it could have been like the end of a season sort of episode with that sort of reveal. The dialogue, the writing, the acting, everything in this show I thought was like just kind of on point. Everything between Locke and Ben was really, really well done. The scenes with Kate and Jack were really well written. They were, emotionally impactful. They were showing kind of the best sides of the characters. Even though with Kate there was sort of the whole like, I didn't think you were serious sort of trope. That I thought was a little lame, but for the most part, it was. I mean, her entire mission of kind of getting him back was predicated upon that idea. Seeing what Locke went through and finally seeing how his back was broken, you almost knew it had to have something to do with that son of a bitch who took his kidney. But then, at the very end, through all of this and through all of Ben's weaving schemes and manipulations and all that to open up that door and see his dad sitting there, bound and gagged in that room was just an amazing way to end the show. And I felt like it could have been the end of a season. It was that good.
Yeah, it's a pretty big fucking reveal.
Yeah. And it really shows like what the literal fuck, like there actually is a box that, maybe that things just come out of. What the fuck is going on? Yeah. And
also, why in the hell did Ben refer to him as the man from Tallahassee?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? Like, he's like, bring me him. And I mean, all of it is just, there's so many questions surrounding, like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
I had my final impressions, just said, wow, yes, so good. Loving all things Locke. Finally stood up to his dad. Didn't work out well, but he finally stood up to his dad.
Stood up to his dad and got put in a wheelchair.
Yeah, but he's fighting to be where he thinks he belongs. I love that about him. I'm a little more forgiving about the submarine incident, I think, than Christy and Derek. Ben's manipulation was brilliant. He is amazing. I'm left just wanting more. Unfortunately, much like the disappointment of Stranger in a Strange Land after flashes before your eyes, I will not get more next week. We go right into expose.
Christy's episode.
But they do that to you twice. Twice in this season, you get huge episodes, and then after it, you get like a, what
Turd.
was that? Yep. Yeah. Christy,
Balance,
what did you what did you think of The Man from Tallahassee?
It was a great episode. I think that it was probably the best so far this season.
Oh, you like it more than Flashes Before Your Eyes?
It's just so good.
Okay.
We finally get the answer on why Locke is in the wheelchair. And then Mr. Cooper's on the island?
Yeah.
What the fuck is this box? You know, like we get some answers, but then we get mysteries. And, Ben talks about the box and he's like, something came out of the box. Exactly. What's in the box?
What's in the box?
But then they show us what was in the box, like all in one episode. So,
and it wasn't Gwyneth Paltrow's head.
No, it was not.
Oh, wow.
So
I like that movie.
Oh, that was a great movie.
Yeah.
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
It's Mr. Cooper. All right. Derek, please tell us, what did you think of the big reveal this week? And what kind of questions are you left at the end of this kooky episode?
I thought it was an outstanding episode because we finally get to find out how Locke got into the wheelchair, and it's because his fucked up father threw him out of a window.
That'll do it.
We find out Jack made a deal to get off the island, but Ben manipulated Locke into blowing up the submarine. I really did like their dialogue between Ben and Locke.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good dialogue in this episode. We hear about a magic box, and Anthony Cooper is now on the island. So my big questions are, what is the box, and how did Anthony Cooper get on the island?
There you go.
All right. Well, we have got more to explore those questions through the end of season 3, but not next week. Next week, we're finally there, guys. We've been
looking forward to this. I've been hearing about it.
We've been talking about this episode since we started recording. It is the one Christy wanted so desperately. It's called Expose. It's got Nikki. It's got Paolo. But that's not all. Next week, joining us, bringing the razzle-dazzle. That'll make sense next week. It's Ado and it's Dave from Lost the Plot. Our friends, the Irish lads, they are going to be here for Expose. Woo-hoo. We are going to have a fucking blast through this absolute shit show of an episode next week, guys. We'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Lost in My 40s is a Space Bear Media production. Executive produced and edited by me, Lacy J. Sound engineering, editing, and original music by Benjamin Trimp. Like and follow Lost in My 40s on Facebook to interact with your hosts. Plus, follow Space Bear Media on YouTube to watch our episode pre-shows. You can also find us at SpaceBear_media on Instagram and Twitter. Or come to our website, spacebearmedia.com.